Welcome back to the Upper Tier Podcast. This is your Premier League preview, match week 14. Not sure whether to call it match week 14 because match week 14 consists of 2 match days, really. But we'll call it match week 14 and maybe the weekend will be match week 14A.
or match week part 1 and match week 14 part 2.
Maybe. We'll see how it goes. But of course, this is the Upper Tier on the Dynamo Podcast Network. Audio version show available on Spotify. This is your Premier League preview, match week 14. Let's get into this with Darren, as always, for the previews. Just to congratulate you, you won 6-3 at the weekend against me, so all good. I didn't realise we were keeping count, but it's all good anyway. We'll keep on counting from now on.
I'm super competitive, man. So, absolutely. Like, in my head, I would be counting. I'd be like watching 3 o'clock, so I'm like, I have that one. He has the other one. Oh, I've got, like, I was watching the horse racing yesterday here in the house, and myself and the 6-year-old were picking which horse we fancied. Like, we weren't even having a bet on them, but we're just and I'm going to the 6-year-old. Ha, told you, get you and all. Well then. Why don't you take a day off from being a head case, Darren?
That's the sign on the clubhouse that says it's their game, not yours. Let's get into this. Let's start off Tuesday, 2 games. Newcastle versus Norwich. Huge game for Eddie Howe.
Huge game for Eddie Howe. Absolutely huge. But a tough game with Norwich in a bit of form, 7 from the last 9 points, couple of good wins, and it's a good draw against Wolves at the weekend. Yeah, really, really is. Dean Smith starting to kind of get Norwich a bit more organised at the back and stuff like that. So yeah, like, that's 2 clean sheets on the bounce for them as well, isn't it? They're like buses, none for edge, and then you get 2 in a row. I think this is going to be a big game for Newcastle, though. They've kind of stuttered along a little bit on their Howe. Obviously, he had the COVID scare and stuff like that, and he missed the game. And then obviously, they're in the weekend, but they're playing against Arsenal, who are kind of a team in good form and stuff like that. I think this is probably his first legitimate chance to pick up a victory, and I think they'll fancy themselves Newcastle, I really do. I don't necessarily think they'll get the result, but I think they'll be going in and he'll be saying to his boys, listen, if we're going to start picking up wins, this is really where we need to start, but I do think, that confidence it'll be high for Norwich, won't it?
Could be their undoing, though, that confidence.
It could be, it absolutely could be. They start smelling themselves a little bit, and all of a sudden. But I think it's too soon under Smith to have that kind of a massive blip, I think they'll be well drilled. I think they'll put in a performance, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this. You see the spoils being shared in this one, maybe 1-1, something like that, tight, cagey sort of affair, goal in each half, something like that, You
going for a score draw?
I think I'm going to go 1-1, yeah.
I'm going to go for a Newcastle win because I think if there was ever a game that's set up for them to go and win it, this has to be the game. And I think Eddie Howe will have had enough time at this stage now with the players to figure out what way he wants to do it. And I think even with Newcastle, even playing against Arsenal, like they weren't really, really poor. They just didn't seem at it the way you'd expect. And Arsenal kind of railroaded them a little bit. But with Norwich, if Norwich were to get a result here, we all thought Norwich were dead and buried. Did you see a way where they could survive under Dean Smith?
I find it difficult because I don't believe that bounce can carry you far enough, that new manager bounce that we always talk about. I think they'll do better maybe under Smith because I don't think he's as focused on playing the kind of football that Daniel Farke wanted to play. I think it was very unrealistic to try and keep Norwich in the league playing that kind of brand and style of football. But I think they could possibly give themselves a fighting chance under Smith, because he obviously was able to get Villa very, very solid and resolute with the back, so he has a history for doing that, and he did it as well at Brentford. and he can, you know, he knows how to pick a team and put some tactics out there, Dean Smith. You know, he really, really does.
Yeah.
But I still think it's going to be probably a step too far.
Yeah.
You know, I really do. But, you know, stranger things.
Yeah, it's just when you see so many teams down there that are struggling and stuff like that. And I know that you'll probably say, well, Leeds potentially have a little bit more quality, potentially. You know, you might have an argument say there that maybe Newcastle have a little bit more quality, potentially. But I mean, you have to go out and perform. And if he's building something there based on defense, I mean, defenses could keep you in the division, no doubt about
100%.
it. I'm going to go for a Newcastle win, though. I think the Geordies, I think at home, Eddie Howe in the dugout, I think it's set up for a Newcastle win. And I think if they don't get a win, they really want to be asking themselves, are they going to be in this league next season, the way things are going? Up next on Tuesday, Leeds United versus Crystal Palace.
Yeah, this will be a tough game for Leeds again, won't it?
It's kind of the way when we talk about Leeds, it kind of sinks in our heart as well, isn't it? Because we want them to be a Premier League club. We believe they should be a Premier League club. They should be big enough to be a Premier League club. But you're never too big to go down again. And it's second season syndrome as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think there'll be a lot of teams and coaches that watched a lot of tape on how Leeds played last year. And you know, the amount of space and chances that they gave away based on how they wanted again to play football. I think style over substance is probably what's killing Leeds at the minute. And they're trying to play a certain brand of football again under Bielsa, but maybe they don't quite have the quality to do that. And especially at this stage where they've got so many players out injured, you know.
You'd expect a club like Leeds as well to understand that sometimes you have to win dirty, wouldn't you?
You would, but I don't think it's, you know, like it's not Bielsa ball, is it? Yeah, it's not his style. That's the problem. Yeah. You know, listen, I think Leeds at home on a Tuesday night in December is, you know, absolutely peak Leeds, isn't it? And get down and dirty and really throw a few tackles in and the crowd get behind them. And, you know, I think it's set up for them. But I don't think they're going to get a win. No. I really don't.
No, you'd be betting the farm on Palace, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, I think Palace will I think Vieira will look for a reaction here after coming off the defeat at the weekend. They weren't extremely poor against Villa, but they weren't maybe right where he'd like them to have been. I know there was a couple of refereeing decisions that he was a bit unhappy with and stuff like that. Yeah. And maybe, as we spoke about, they were going to be tough to split Villa and Palace, you know. And I think he'll kind of galvanise them after that. And he'll go, you know what? Sometimes you don't always get what you want, but sometimes you need to go and take what you want. And I imagine we'll see Palace really at it tomorrow night, if I'm honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Move on to Wednesday then. We got Southampton versus Leicester.
Yeah, Southampton are a funny old team, aren't they?
In a bad run, aren't they?
They're in a bad run, you know. Again, I've said it before, I like the boy Ralph. I really do. Not our own Ralph. I like Ralph Hasenhüttl. I think the squad at Southampton is a big part of the problem here. You know, they've become a selling club they've always been a selling club, but over the last few years, it's really been get them to a stage and get them out the door and use what we get for them to rejuvenate the squad and stuff like that, you know. But there's only so many times you can go to that well, isn't there?
Yeah, especially they're selling really good players for very little money, really, when you think about it in the bigger scheme of things. Like, it's not like you look at the boys that went out there in the summer, you know, they didn't get huge amounts of money for them, really, you know what I mean, when you think about it, and they sold quality players.
And to replace Danny Ings' goals with what you got from him is so difficult.
You're going to have to spend double.
Absolutely, you know. Absolutely, yeah, you really are. It's going to be tough for them. I think Leicester have started to get the ball rolling, you know. It's a good win at the weekend. They're still leaky at the back, Leicester. This is still an issue, you know. If they were playing a team maybe that I felt could score 2 or 3, I might think Leicester be in trouble. But based on the fact Southampton don't generally score 2 or 3, I think Leicester will have enough in hand here. I imagine this will be about teams to score, and Leicester might just get the result. I'm going to say 2-1 to the Foxes.
This is a midweek game. Is this a game that's set up for our boy Patson Daka? He likes playing midweek, doesn't he?
He does like playing midweek, doesn't he? And obviously, Vardy had a good game at the weekend, and so did James Maddison. But does he play Vardy again, or does he say, listen, we'll keep rolling with the way this is. We'll keep you playing midweek, and we'll get Jamie out on the weekend and stuff like that again. He's the heir to the throne, really, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's ready and waiting to take that position when and if he's asked it. Because I think Vardy, although, listen, you can never write the guy off, and he's a super athlete, and he works very, very hard and stuff like that. I think he is on the wind down. Without being disrespectful, obviously. And I think Dak has been a really good signing, and I think they're doing this in a really, really clever way where they're maybe saying, listen, come and learn from somebody like Jamie Vardy. Come and see how he likes to play on the last shoulder. See how he likes to get lads turned. See how direct he is. Bring a little bit of that into what you've shown us already, when you were at Salzburg or whatever like that, and grow as a player. And we'll give you enough game time, and then we'll unleash you type of thing,
Yeah. So what are you're going here? What was it? Leicester 2-1, is it?
I'm going 2-1 Leicester. Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a Leicester win. I won't give you a scoreline, but I think it'll be tight enough.
Yeah.
St. Mary's, it's a tough place to go still, you know what I mean? So it's
absolutely.
Watford versus Chelsea.
Yeah, listen, Watford have been good lately, they really have been. They obviously turned us over. They turned Everton over as well, like 5-2 and 4-1 against United and Everton. Like, they're two big results, And the problem is that, again, everything is set up to be on the offensive, and they're not maybe looking after the defensive side of the game as much as they should. They obviously shipped for the weekend against Leicester. And it could have been quite a few more, if I'm honest. I think this is going to be a tough game for Watford, obviously, with possibly a return in Lukaku. He obviously came on the weekend, the last sort of 10 minutes or so, another couple of days training under his belt. Would you unleash him at Watford? Possibly. Or maybe he gets half an hour, but he'll be in and about it. And I think after the result of the weekend, Tuchel will really try and go out there and get these 3 points and hammer this home for them, And again, they're out before Liverpool, aren't they? So they'll want to, again, set the marker and open that gap back up and pile a bit more pressure onto Liverpool.
It's only 45 minutes before us, though. That's the only thing.
Oh, it's not too bad. It's not too bad, yeah.
But still, it's still significant.
Yeah, I think Watford will give a decent account of themselves, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them maybe get on the score sheet. So I'm going to say 3-1 Chelsea.
Yeah, I'm thinking in around the same. I think Chelsea's passing and their cleverness and their talent, I think it will bypass Watford's, front play. And I think it could be a tough day at the office for Watford. But again, these London games, you can never really tell, but I just think Chelsea might have too much. I don't see much of a hangover there from the United game. I'd say it'll be a concern. But as you said, maybe we won't see Werner maybe in there. It'll be Lukaku, and he'd be a little bit more clinical in terms of play. Plus, he's kind of bullish and he's big and strong and stuff like that. So,
absolutely,
yeah, I'd say a Chelsea win. West Ham versus Brighton. It's an interesting game now. This is West Ham off the back of 2 losses after a great result against Liverpool on a little bit of a slide, just a small bit. Brighton, of course, still trying to find a win. They've no wins now in 7, I think it is. This would be no wins in 8 if they can't get across the line here against West Ham. But again, going to that City of London stadium is a tough place to go to as well with West Ham at the moment.
Just ask Jurgen Klopp and his merry men.
We know.
Very, very tough place to go. Again, I think, like with the European games that have been going on recently, that's possibly hampered West Ham a little bit. The kind of bad results or the poor results seem to be coming after the Thursday night football, which we spoke about before. but they come alive again midweek, and I'd imagine that'll be the fear, that West Ham will come alive in this one. I think West Ham will get back to winning ways. I really do. I think Potter, he's got Brighton really, really well drilled. And I mean, if you look at the game at the weekend, they should never, ever drop 2 points in that game. It's really criminal. But in his defence, you can't account for the misses that his players had. I don't think they'll create half that against West Ham. And I think they'll be in for a much, much tougher time at the back. And we just saw towards the end of the game at the weekend, there was a few little holes appearing in that Brighton defence. Tyler Roberts was unlucky a couple of times very late on in the game. I think West Ham have a lot more going on up front than Leeds do. You've obviously got Lanzini, you've got Fornals, you've got Antonio, you've got Benrahma, you've got Bowen. There's a lot there.
Souček from deep.
Souček from deep, Yarmolenko. There's a lot of quality there. I think West Ham get back on the horse on Tuesday night, and I'm going to say 2-1 to the Happy Hammers.
I think this is going to be one of the games of the night. I think it's two very attacking-minded sides. And you know something? I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw on that one, I think. I think Potter, I think he has his work cut out, but I think when his back's to the wall and he has his work cut out, sometimes that's when you see the best of him. And I think he'll want to lay down a bit of a marker as well. So I think a 2-2 draw. Wolves versus Burnley.
Yeah, this will be a good game. Very, very competitive, Burnley can keep things tight at the back at times, They really, really can, and they can make it horrible for teams. Frustrating and just getting rid of balls and stuff like that. The only thing I will say is I think Wolves are probably very, very good at what Burnley aren't very good at, which is moving the ball at pace. I think that's where they're most likely to, they're not going to certainly be lumping balls into the box, because obviously Tarkowski and me and Charlie Taylor and stuff like that, that's meat and drink for them, isn't it? But I do think they can play the ball very, very quick around that 18-yard line. Again, the lads we've mentioned, Hwang Yi-chan, the boy Podence, Silva, Jimenez, there's a lot there. Trincao, there's a lot of good players. Our boy Adama, who we haven't seen for a few weeks now, I think maybe he's been given a seat and told, you want to get into this team, you've got to have end product. Which I think is brilliant, because too often players are getting a spot and they're guaranteed of a spot. And I think this is a really, really clever decision for Bruno Largate. And he's saying to the guy, listen, I think you're a phenomenal footballer, but I need end product if you're going to play in this team. And that, that little bit of pressure can really help a player at times, because you only find out how good you are when your back is against the wall at times, don't you?
Absolutely.
I think Wolves will just get this over the line. I really do. But I think it's going to be very tight. So I'm going to say Wolves by the odd goal. And I'm going to say 2-1. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was 1-0.
I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to go 2-1 Burnley.
Right.
I fancy the boy Chris Woods with a couple of set pieces.
Right, okay.
I think he's very difficult to play against. And I think from Burnley's point of view, I think it's going to be a dogged fight. And I think it will give up a number of set pieces. And I think that will play into Burnley's hands. With the likes of Ben Mee there and stuff like that, and Chris Woods and guys like that, they can really put the ball away, So I'm going to go for a Burnley 2-1 win away at Wolves. And that would be my my shocker of the night, really, So that would be the one you'll be looking out for now. Going, that's the one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Aston Villa, Man City, Stevie versus Pep.
This is obviously Stevie's first big test, isn't it? This will be a big test for Villa. Obviously, it's gotten back to winning ways, and they've looked so much better at the back in the last couple of games. They've only conceded the one. and they've been much, much tighter, you know. And again, they started to create a few more chances now as well, you know. He's got a nice little tune out of Villa to begin with.
Yeah.
But, and this is where the book comes in, I think City are just in that form where they're just starting to not necessarily steamroll teams, but just go through the gears and just pick up win after win after win.
Just workmanlike. Just go out and do what they need to do.
But we've talked about it before, you know, they beat Chelsea 1-0, they beat PSG 2-1, they're 2-1 with West Ham. It's not it's the odd goal, but they're just churning them out. And I think that's something that maybe Guardiola doesn't get enough credit for at times. Is, you know, we talk about obviously how they play and, you know, the high press and passing game and all of these, you know, the beautiful tactics that he employs and stuff like that, the flair and the false nine and getting these footballers to interchange position and the speed they play at and all this. But at times, they can dig in and be dogged.
Yeah, when they need to grind it out, they can do it, yeah. When
they need to grind it out, and you just think, like, maybe at times we don't give him enough credit for that and give his teams enough credit for that, because they just seem to be able to, when I just think, you know, oh yeah, they won't do it, they just do it. And you're like, Jesus, I didn't think they'd do that. Every time I think they're going to be in for a rough night and they're going to maybe drop points or something's going to happen, they win. Yeah. You know, and I just think that's the sign of a good team.
Absolutely.
You know?
What way you calling this one?
A plucky Aston Villa effort, but they're going to be on the receiving end of a loss. I'll go 2-0 City.
I'm going to go 2-1 City.
Okay.
But I think City, I think they will definitely have too much. I think this will be, I'll be very surprised. I mean, if Stevie even got a draw here, that'll be a huge feather in his cap. I think City, I just think around the park and the way they move it. The only thing I suppose you're looking at is a midweek game and they do have to travel to Villa Park, which is not an easy place to go to either. But I think City, with the quality they have on the pitch, up against Aston Villa, I think they'll just have a little bit too much of them. I'm thinking 2-1 City.
I suppose we can just throw the one variable out that they also had to play the weekend in that snow, and it may not have been as easy a game if the conditions were slightly different. So it might have taken a little bit more out of them to just get over the line. Now, we could be wrong. Yeah. But we could just throw it out there, you know. Yeah, and Villa obviously having the extra day's recovery as well.
Merseyside derby, 8:15, Everton versus Liverpool.
Yeah. This is going to be tough for Rafa, isn't it? This is really going to be tough for Rafa. You know, do you really want to go and play Liverpool when you can't score a goal?
No.
No. And when you're looking a bit leaky at the back, you know, it's not a good combination being leaky and not being able to score goals. Like it's terminal, really, isn't it? Like, yeah,
I did a preview with Dean earlier on the Shankly session. It'll be releasing tomorrow. And the one thing I said that we need to be careful of from a Liverpool point of view is Everton have an awful way of dragging you down into the mud, into their dirty kind of way of playing. And the time seems to go by very quick in a match when you're caught in that and you can't seem to get out of it. It's like as if they nearly drag you down into quicksand and you can't get out of it. But I think if Liverpool go in there, like the way they approach the Southampton game, and they're professional about it, and they don't get caught up in the, you know, the GBH of Thiago and Virgil van Dijk last season and all that kind of stuff, and they go in there to do a professional job, score a few goals, get 3 points, get out of there with no injuries, I think we'll do okay. I think if you're going to get downright dogged and dirty about this and you let them drag you in like they did in that game, I think that's where we could have a problem potentially, but I don't think we will. I'm going for a Liverpool win, and I'm going for a comfortable win, 3-0.
You just took the words out of my mouth. I think Everton will try and be dogged, and they'll try and be gritty and stuff like that. But I think if you just look at the two sides, that the difference in the quality with what's on show it's a little bit scary. I mean, if I'm Everton, I probably don't see where I'm going to get goals from.
Yeah.
Or enough goals to win a game like this.
It's just they have players, don't they have players that are slightly a little bit clever in getting players that are really good and knocking them and destabilizing them out of their own game at times?
I think there's a physicality there, you know, which Rafa teams always have, is a physicality, and they don't mind going and getting down and dirty and stuff like that. But I still think there's way too much out there, and I'm going to echo your result, and I'm going to say 3-0 to Liverpool. Probably the scoreline might be a bit flattering towards the end, but I think you'll get the win anyway.
Yeah, I think it's said on the preview, I think it's one of those games where Rafa might want to come home on the bus with us back to Anfield, the way things are going. Let's round out then the last two matches on Thursday. Tottenham versus Brentford.
Yeah, this is a big game for Tottenham, obviously. They didn't get out of the traps, obviously, against Burnley at all at the weekend because of the snow and stuff like that at Turf Moor. They had a horrible result midweek against Mora in the Europa. You know, beaten by a team like that it's criminal when you're Tottenham Hotspur. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think Conte was really, really put out by the result and the performance. If I'm honest, I wouldn't have been surprised to see a lot of changes at the weekend. And again, having maybe more time, because obviously they don't need an off day today because they didn't kick a ball yesterday. You know, so they're in there this morning, and he's again probably drumming in tactics. He's probably looking at, this is the way we need to play. Let's try and get things a bit tighter at the back. I know Thomas Frank obviously got a good result at the weekend with Brentford. It's a big win for them after going a couple of games without a win. You know, it's only their second home win at home this season, which was a surprising stat I heard. Yeah. The other game was obviously Arsenal, the first game of the season. But I think this is tough for Brentford. I think they've got the result, so maybe the pressure is off them a little bit. And I wouldn't be surprised to see this be a high-scoring game, I have to tell you. I think there's goals in this, but I think there's probably just more goals on the Spurs side. I'm going to say Spurs are going to win 3-2.
I'm going to go 3-1 Spurs.
Okay. Everybody run out and back Brentford now. Right now.
100%. For the handicap, -1. Yeah. No, I mean, it could be one of those ones that gets a bit dogged, and you could see like a 2-2 draw or something like that. You know what I mean? Because, you know, as dogged as Conte is, he didn't get that game at the weekend. So now he has, you know, and he's coming off a bad game, as you said. So he might want to solidify things somewhat in defence and stuff like that. So I don't know. He might be dogged enough in his approach.
I think he'll try, but I think the problem is he doesn't have the personnel. Yeah. You know, and if you look at the boys, Tony and Mbeumo and Kanyos and, you know, Pinnock and stuff like that, there's a lot there to kind of for Spurs to nail down. But I think they'll have enough going forward. I'm gonna pin me flag to the mast again, and I hope he doesn't shit on me for another week in a row. I think we'll see Harry return. You know, I think it's gonna happen. I think it's gonna happen sooner rather than later. And I think he's only waiting on one game and a couple of goals, and all of a sudden he's gonna be back, bang at it. Yeah, absolutely.
And we round out the midweeks then on Thursday with United versus Arsenal. United coming off the back of a great result against Chelsea. Arsenal coming off the back of a very good result themselves. What you're thinking on this one?
This is going to be a tough game to call, to be honest with you, you know. Obviously, United have got a great result the weekend away at Chelsea and stuff like that. Arsenal have only really been beaten by the absolute best in the league at the minute. Everybody else, they've kind of, you know, been able to roll over, albeit after they got up and running, let's say. Yeah. But they've been grinding results out, you know, very un-Arsenal-like, let's say. They've been tight at the back. They've been nicking a goal here or there. But I liked what I saw from United last night or yesterday. I really liked what I saw from United yesterday. I think it was the foundation of what we're going to see going forward. I'd love to see something very similar, and I think the more that they play this type of a system, the more they'll get used to it, and the more players will understand how they're being asked to play and what their job is in the team. I think there'll be goals, I think there'll be goals because I think both of them are, they're not unbelievable at the back, either of them really. Two goalkeepers who've been playing out of their socks this season. You could make a case for both keepers being the player of the season so far for their teams, 13 games in.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I just think we'll have a couple of goals, and I hope I'm right. I just think United are going to have a little more going forward than Arsenal are, and I'm going to say 2-1 United.
I think I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw. Because I think Arsenal going forward as well, I think they have a bit about them as well with the boys Saka and Smith Rowe. I think, I'd put Martinelli in there. I think he's a fantastic player. Aubameyang has been kind of out of form. Lacazette is flatter to the save. I think Martinelli will be that type of player now. He could upset potentially a Maguire or a Lindelof or something like that, because he's kind of a bit awkward in terms of how you manage him.
I know it's listen. I think there's a case to make to not bring Maguire back in, on the basis of what the two boys did at the weekend away at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah,
and what kind of players are you coming up against? Saka, lightning. Aubameyang, lightning. Smith Rowe, quicker with the ball than he is without it, right? Tomiyasu, quick. The boy on the opposite side, Nuno, very quick again. Like there's a lot of speed in that Arsenal team. Lindelof and Boyd don't look as susceptible to speed as Maguire +1.
That'd be a massive call though, wouldn't it?
It would be, but listen, here's the thing. They made a massive call on Sunday. They made two massive calls for me. One, which was putting Matic in, which I know you called, so big props to you for that. I thought it's a brave, bold move, but he's also left Ronaldo out. Now, is Maguire a bigger leave out than Ronaldo? I don't think he is.
It's similar, isn't it? Because it's kind of for similar reasons, isn't it? In terms of the pattern of play.
Well, it's for a tactical point where you go, you know what? This isn't. I see. If we're playing Burnley, he comes back in because you're playing Chris Wood, Ashley Barnes. And you're playing lads that want to get really, really physical, which plays right into his hands. None of the Arsenal boys are going to want to get physical. They're not going to want to mix it. Everything's going to be 1-2 touch, played at lightning speed. Therefore, you don't allow a Maguire to get a little bit high in the line to create space behind them, because that's going to be a massive problem, I think there's an argument there to say maybe let him sit it out. And I think I hope
go with the same starting 11.
Possibly. I think ball from a ball retention point of view, we struggled a little bit at the weekend. So I wouldn't be surprised maybe now we're back at home to see somebody like a Van de Beek come back in and try and just get control of that midfield and take a touch here and there. I'll be surprised. Again, I was surprised on Sunday, but I'll be surprised if he goes Matic again after 90 minutes at the bridge, to come out and go, against Arsenal for another 90 minutes. He doesn't tend to have that in his legs, but maybe he thinks he can get him to a certain point in the game. Or maybe he thinks, I start off with a high tempo with the press, and maybe if we can nick a goal and get a goal up or something like that, I put the likes of Matic in with 30 minutes to go, where he starts to screen and lets, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's options.
Yeah, there's options there, all right, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting. No doubt,
Brilliant.
no doubt you'll be tracking the results from the Tuesday games
Absolutely.
and updating me on how bad I'm doing. My brother, a pleasure as always. This has been your Premier League preview, match week 14, part 1 with Darren on the Dynamo Podcast Network on YouTube, brought to you by the Upper Tier, Spotify for audio versions of the show. And we will be back with a preview, no doubt, for the weekend and Darren's update on how the scoring went midweek. Till next time, my friend, a pleasure.
Thanks, brother.